everyone to mute their mics so that we can get started. So everyone's going to mute their mics, of course, except for us. And we're going to begin now. I'm going to ask Mr. Lloyd to just hit record. It is recording. Thank you so much, Mr. Lloyd. Good morning, everyone. I am your host for this morning, Miss Lloyd or Tanya. And today we're presenting Love and Education. It is a part of our community give back from the Robinson Lloyd Resiliency Group. And I have the special honor of introducing my husband, my partner, the president of the Robinson Lloyd Resiliency Group, Mr. Sean Lloyd. Mr. Sean Lloyd has been an educator for over 20 years. He is a member of the Distinguished Society for the Phi Alpha Society Honor Society of the MPA program. Most of all, he loves education. He loves his community. And I have a special surprise here because I think that the best way of sharing what we do is through someone who has actually experienced the work that we contribute to our community. And I would like to introduce at this time Mr. Raymond Blanks. He is now the Dean of Students for North Star Academy, and he's going to tell us best about Mr. Lloyd, who taught him when he was in which grade, Raymond?
7th and 8th grade.
7th and 8th grade. Raymond, the floor is yours. Please tell us how this man touched your life.
Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here to share my experience with Sean, Mr. Lloyd in the classroom. So the question that was asked was, what would I say is the most transformational thing that Mr. Lloyd did that changed my life or that impacted me in the classroom? So that I said that he taught me how to shape my perspective on the world around me. I learned how to think and the importance of challenging my opinions and beliefs. I would also say he taught us a sense of community in the classroom, knowledge of self, high expectations, and self-respect. I always thought I would have an opportunity to do great things, but after having him as a teacher, it became an expectation. So that was my thinking when I was asked this question. Tanya, I'm gonna hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Raymond. Thank you so much. And of course, this was all a surprise to Mr. Lloyd. So Mr. Lloyd, we just want to share, a deep sense of gratitude to you, to all that you've been doing for the past 20 years. And we look forward to your gems, your wisdom that you're going to share with us. Thank you so much, Mr. Lloyd. The floor is yours.
That was, I wasn't expecting that. I appreciate it very much, of course. See, now I gotta start over again because I had the process in my head, and now I'm sitting there thinking now. Raymond, I appreciate that, man. And one of the reasons that's so awesome to hear is that I guess, it's appropriate. The title is Love and Education, man. We're not supposed to do this for a check, right? Everybody has to live, right? That's the real world, right? We do need money and currency, right, to survive. But this, I think part of what we're trying to get through in this presentation is different, slightly different from the first one, is the mindset, right? How to get into that mindset, because that thoughts are things, right? And the thoughts that you manifest and develop lead to the action, and how you interact with the students every day. In my opinion, the way you interact with students individually and as a group is more important than content, knowledge, pedagogy. classroom management, just the personal, the interactions that you have and the energy behind it is the most important thing that you could ever have in a class, in my opinion. And this translating to the home as well. You have young people running around or just whoever, right? You're trying to have good relationships and we're trying to share. So let's get started, right? This is Love and Education, part 2. It's a biological, philosophical, and metaphysical discussion. The reason why this even developed into a presentation format we few years ago, and my wife and I, we were at a workshop, a service learning workshop in LA, and we enjoyed it a lot. What we thought, or particularly myself in this one interview, what I thought was the most important thing, education, and I just blurted out, I just said, it's love, of course, right? But that sounded kind of corny and abstract. So like since then, we've been trying to format it in a way to have a formal discussion so that it's something that can be digested by a lot of different people without it being too fluffy, right? All right. All right. So what we're going to do, right, throughout this discussion, right, we're going to start with a warm up. All right. It's gonna kind of get us into, like it says, the mindset of how to apply these, or really any type of techniques or philosophies that you want to take into the day or into next month or the next few years, right? And then we're going to have a review on the first 2 circuits of the brain, or first 2 levels of consciousness, right? And then we'll have another activity where we're going to discuss how we develop our purpose. And the purpose, that goes right back to, of course, the mindset, right? If you are, when you're in a classroom in particular, or just doing anything, right? When you're doing anything and you want to do it and you enjoy it, it is like meditation. And for people that are so inclined, it is like a prayer, right? It is something that, pardon me, it's something that it places you in a state where you are giving and receiving from the universe, right? We're going to get into the next 2 levels of consciousness after that, right? The next 2 circuits in the brain. This will all be diagrammed. And then we're going to lead off with this last activity. And this phrase is in quotes because, it's not mine. It's giving leads to loving. And my wife and I, we were having a discussion with someone that shall remain nameless, but she was describing an interaction she had with one of her teachers in 11th grade. And she used to always tell her she used to repeat this phrase in class all the time. And that I think is quite true, and it's easy for us to understand, but we're going to have a more in-depth discussion about that. And so to get started, right, we're gonna I want us to consider, right, to think of your favorite or your least favorite or both, right, teacher of all time, right? And do not embarrass anybody. We don't need any names, anything like that. We're going to post this, right? But it's not about that. It's not personal, right? And that's another thing that that's one of my mantras too. It's never personal, right? It's always the person. So what we bring to any interaction or what we bring to the table in a situation is based on where we are in that moment. And it's good for us to try to perceive others in the same way. All right. So think of your favorite or least favorite teacher of all time, right? List the reasons, right? And this is why I asked about a pen and paper or pencil and paper, or you can also write some in the chat, but it would be great if you wrote them down for yourself, because when we share out, we don't want to forget any of the great nuggets that you might come up with, right? List the reasons that their classroom made such an impression on you, and these are good or bad, of course. Pardon me. What qualities did your teacher or teachers possess or lack? So I guess that could be a combination as well, right? You may have 2 or 3 teachers that you thought were great. You might have 1 or 2 that were not so great, and we want to know why, right? So take a few minutes right now, please, and compile a list. And I waited myself to do this, I didn't make my list because I wanted to do it in real time. So I'm about to do the same thing. All right. So I have a favorite, and then I have, and if you want to type it out on your phone too, people do that all the time.
You doing? Hey, mommy. Hey.
I'm glad I did it this way because I can appreciate people that are sitting there writing and trying to think about it. I can appreciate what it's like to have to think about it on the spot. Like, but we appreciate you as well. Excuse me. I think another minute or two is good. I mean, unless someone raises their hand and says something, I think another minute is good about that. Yeah. Check out this chat room real quick. Oh, wow. Okay, I'll start reading the chats. Let me do this. All right. Oh, I see you, Heather. Yeah, that's true, Heather. You have to establish and cultivate a relationship to exchange anything. This is facts. All right. Can I read yours? Tonya says, she says, my favorite teacher of all time was Ms. Hills in the Caribbean. We have a major exam, which was known as a common entrance. Her classroom impressed her because she set high expectations for the students, and they were all repeaters. What does that mean, repeaters?
We actually didn't pass to the school of our choice. So the first time, so we got a second chance to do the exam.
Oh, so she didn't give up on you. And
No.
she knew that you could make it happen.
Yes. Yes.
Right. That's what's up. All right, we either did not pass them. Okay. Awesome. Kathleen Robinson. My favorite was Miss Reese. She was simply loving, always hugging, and showing us individually how to strengthen weak areas. She was always around, exuberated love. Yeah. Thanks. All right. Heather, my favorite teacher was unapologetic, wealth of knowledge and wisdom. Oh man, I wonder if this is the same person. Heather, Pat Reed, is that
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I have her on the list, and I'll share why I said so. Right, her content knowledge, right? She put, and you know how she used to make us read essays, right? She always put, right? So she tells you to perform and have enough confidence to say, I know what I'm doing, and that's okay, right? Yeah. And her preparation was ridiculous. She knew everything. She knew all her topic right there on top of her head. She encouraged self-exploration and individual search for their own truth. This is facts. All right. Dr. Pat Reed-Merritt. All right. Anybody else willing to add on to share?
Hi, it's Stacey. I'd like to share. So for my least, did you want least favorite and favorite?
I appreciate that, because I was just about to say we want to hear least as well, because we want that contrast.
Okay, so for my least favorite, and I don't want anybody to cry because I shared this at a staff meeting one time, and the school nurse started crying, and I was like, oh God, I didn't need that. So my least favorite, actually my kindergarten teacher, I don't even remember her name. And she just was not kind. She wasn't. I can't say that she was mean, but it was just very scary and intimidating. And now that I'm older and I reflect back, I guess what made it even worse is I was coming from the preschool that I was in. They were overly kind and overly compassionate, and just like whenever I think of my preschool experience and like just how nice and sweet they were, and then to go to the school where she's just like stoic. And I mean, when I think about her classroom, and this is what I'm thinking, this is what I remember from it. It may not have looked like this at all, but for me it just felt so cold, and everything was dark brown, and it just wasn't. I was just glad when it was over. I was definitely glad when it was over. So that's my least favorite. And my favorite, I actually picked two. I have so many favorites, but I want to mention these two because it's two separate reasons. So my immediate favorite teacher was my sixth grade teacher, Miss Evans. She dressed really nice. She was a strict old school teacher. I was always just really smart, so I would finish my work quickly. So then I got in trouble because now I finished my work, so then I'm talking to the other kids who didn't finish their work. So she would find opportunities like go to the office and do something, go help her. So I used to always get in trouble. She was always calling, telling my mother how I'm talking in the classroom, disrupting the classroom. But she always gave me some type of leadership opportunities. And then when I became an adult and I started working in the youth development program, I happened to see her. She was a guidance counselor at the school, and she was like, I want you to come and talk for our career day and, just talk about the criminal justice system, because that was my major at the time. So just, to see from sixth grade and for her to still think that highly of me, although I was, not listening to her class. But my ninth grade biology teacher, and this is something I never really talk about too much, but he was kind of the opposite of Miss Evans. He was strict, but he wasn't an old school strict. He never raised his voice. He just commanded respect just because, right? And the way he taught us, when I reflect now, he prepared us for college. It was a biology honors class. Actually, it wasn't ninth grade. It was 10th grade. It was 10th grade biology honors class. Each lesson was about 40 notes, and this man had us writing the notes, right? Mm-hmm. So when they came, because when I was in school, we didn't have tablets and laptops and all that. I'm talking early 90s. So we were writing it. So that the test was exactly the notes. So if you memorize the notes, you're definitely going to get an A on the test, right? Okay. There's no way in the world we're going to memorize all 40 notes. So we learned the art of cheating. This is bad, that's why I had to walk out the room, but we learned the art of cheating. So the person sitting next to me would memorize the first 20, I would memorize the second 20. We would have the same color pen, and we would just fill, because his notes, he would give us the notes back, and it was just fill in the blank. So if you read it, you would know it. So then we swapped, right? I would do the first 20, she was, and he knew we was cheating. But his thing was, he never said it, because of course you can't admit that you know that cheating. But his thing was, if you could fill out all 20 and get A's, then I know that you know the word. Like eventually you're gonna have to memorize that last 20. Like it was just crazy. And when I say he prepared us for college, meaning I'm not gonna force you to do this. Either you're gonna do it or you're not. That's something that when I got to college, I realized these teachers aren't gonna call home to say, hey, they're not doing their work. They're not even gonna call me to say, hey, you missed an assignment. Either you're gonna do it or you're not. Everybody came to his class on time. We never cut his class. I don't care. And it was the end of the day. It doesn't matter what was going on. It doesn't matter what kind of day he was having. When we stepped into his classroom, the entire class was there on time and focused, because we knew you got 40 pages of notes to write and you better figure it out, because if you don't, you're going to be sitting in summer school. That's crazy, right? No, but I still remember my biology lessons for that.
Let me build on. Let me add on to what you're saying real quickly. But what he's doing, it seems more like. Could you mute the background? Thank you. The memories that you have, it seems like a lot of them are based in. It's about the context that he created. Right? It's not necessarily about a specific subject matter, right? It's about the environment he created and the type of atmosphere that he created. And I think we can agree that a lot of that was based on his person and how he handled himself in the classroom. Raymond had his hand up, and we're gonna let him speak, get his. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I guess I'll share my least favorite. Sean, you may know this person. My least favorite was eighth science. My 8th grade science teacher. She was new to the school and learning community. And the group of kids that we were in the 8th grade, we were really sharp and community oriented, and we could just feel a sense of her not really putting forth effort to get to know the students and build relationships. So whether or not her pedagogy was the best or not, I don't think that was essentially what we were looking at or looking for. I think she got a hard time from a lot of us because we felt there was no sense of connection or love, which I think is appropriate for this presentation. There's always this one quote in education that kind of stands out to me, like, you may not remember what a teacher necessarily said to you, but you always remember how they make you feel. So I think that's really essential.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Well, yeah, we get that's. I appreciate everyone sharing that. That sets up a context for the continuing conversation. We're going to go on to anybody in the background. Please mute in the meantime.
Sorry, Mr. Lloyd, there were a few in the chat room from Cassandra and some guys, if you just wanted to.
Oh, sure, of course. Let me see.
1023, Cassandra.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Mrs. McGriff, 8th grade history teacher. She made history fun. That reminds me of my 7th grade history teacher. Her classroom was a safe, judgment-free atmosphere. And I'm shaking my head because the details that people are sharing, they all go into or are analogous to one of those 4 levels of consciousness that we're about to discuss now, right? She was an unofficial counselor for many students. Oh, she was wise and easy to talk to. Doesn't that make the experience more worthwhile? You see somebody 5 times a day, 5 times a week during the day. All right, let me see, and I'll share out too real quick. I think that, and I'll say this real quick. My parents too. I do have similarities with a couple of people I spoke, but I would say my parents. My mom, she facilitated me being able to just try to learn as much as I could when I was a kid. If I wanted to know something, there was a book or some type of magazine, a college level magazine right there, ready to be read. And my dad, the pressure that he put on me in terms of what he expected me to know, like when we ever had conversations, it was always math, physics, chemistry, all these questions. And I knew that once we were about to start talking, I had to be ready. And it used to be annoying, but it really helped sharpen my wit. I appreciate that. All right. Well, what is love, right? It's an intense feeling of deep affection, right? And we want to go to the Bible, right? As an example, love is patient, kind. It does not envy or boast. It's not proud. It does not dishonor others, not self-seeking or easily angered. Keeps no record of wrongs. It does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, trusts, hopes, and perseveres, right? And from the Maitri, this is another book from the East. Conquer the angry one by not getting angry. Pardon me. Conquer the wicked one by goodness. Conquer the stingy by generosity, and the liar by speaking the truth. And the reason why we define this really quickly is because, like we said, we're going to start from a thought process into action, right? It's a branch of philosophy that examines the fundamental nature of reality, including the relationship between mind and matter, substance and attribute, potentiality and actuality. So we just begin really quickly. We're not going to spend too much time on this, right? But I thought that this was very appropriate. We touched on this last week, so we're not going to spend too much time. There's a scientist in Japan. His name was Masaru Emoto, right? Masaru Emoto, sorry. He was doing thought experiments where he took water and he had oftentimes he would use children or music and they would speak to the water, literally, right? And he'd take the water and freeze it and then examine the crystals under a microscope, right? So this water, he had taken it, this is just a regular tap, right? And this is the water after it had been in the temple after a Buddhist prayer. He froze it, and as you can see, the vibration that was implanted into the water based on the intent and the mindset of the individual created this pattern, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. And our bodies are what? Some people say 75%, 60 to 75% water. So our thoughts literally manifest in our physical body at all times, right? In real time, right? These two are from a couple of pristine lakes, so to speak. One is from Mount Cook, New Zealand. One is from Dianshan Lake in China. They took the water and they froze it into crystals, and this is just in their natural state. Right. This one, the children spoke the word evil, and this was placed in a microwave. Right? This is what you got. This one was love and gratitude, and this one is thank you, right? Truth and peace. Wow, look how elaborate peace is, right? And those are fractals, right? So at each level, the complexity repeats itself, but either exponentially bigger or smaller, right? This one is we did discuss last week platonic solids, right? But this was just really to show how a thought just manifests itself in the physical, right? Just in organic nature in general, right? So this is the cell division or meiosis, right? And this is a zygote being fertilized, right? An egg being fertilized by the sperm, right? And then it starts to divide, right? Now, in platonic solids, you'll have a tetrahedron, the hexahedron or the cube. Then you have the octahedron, dodecahedron, right? So these don't look like polygon type of solids, but if you place a vertex at each one of these points here and then draw line segments between them, this will form a tetrahedron, right? All right, first 4 levels of consciousness, right? 4 levels and 4 circuits in the brain, starting with the brainstem and on up to the occipital lobe. First circuit is the medulla oblongata. This is the fight or flight response, the reptilian brain. And this is also analogous to the 7th law in the Kabbalion, right, of gender, in that masculine and feminine properties exist in nature and everything, right? Real quickly, we have, and that's not about personality per se. This is more about creation, right? The friction of creation brings about new life, right? So in the reptilian brain, it's mostly concerned with what is safe and unsafe, right? And controls involuntary biological responses like the heart, respiratory system, digestion, sneezing, swallowing, etc., right? Reptiles, when you observe them, they're solitary animals. They only congregate for defense or mating, reproduction, right? And the chemical that notoriously affects the reptilian brain is alcohol. So I think I mentioned this before. When you notice sometimes a lot of people, when they get inebriated, they have courage that they didn't necessarily have before. It's because that fight or flight response is totally muted, right? So that sort of need for safety is non-existent, right? All right. So now within the classroom, right, the feeling of and the perception of safety is the most fundamental, right? You're not going to students are not going to digest complex material if they feel like they can't even raise their hand and get a good response, right? And we're not talking about having security guards in the building, because a lot of times, that's what they speak about in terms of professional development. Like we have security and we have the disciplinary structure, and we need that, because I used to do that too. I used to be a dean, and that's very necessary. But this is also, as a dean, and I'm sure Raymond can tell you this, the students have to feel safe to speak to you, to share, right? And that means that you have to be receptive to or ready to deal with anything they have to say and not give them judgment, right? And how do you do this, right? You have to be consistent in action and reaction and interaction. And I know this sounds simple, but just the same way Raymond explained his experience with the teacher, the least favorite teacher, how you address the students, well, I'll say personally, it's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, Mr., Ms., thank you, please, right? I speak to them as if in some ways like they're like my superior or elder, for lack of a better term, because they have to feel like, and for me, I want them to feel as if we're in it together, right? And this also leads to the second circuit, where we get into teamwork, right? In the insect brain, right? 1 second, someone has Tony, can you check that out, please? Thank you. Fairness, right? Fairness also facilitates that feeling of safety. Address mistakes immediately. And these means our own personal mistakes, right? We can't wait a week later to say, oh, you know what? I shouldn't have gave you that homework. Or, I explained that problem wrong. When you know you've made a mistake, right in that moment, you have to tell them. Because as we all know, when you're in a class and and a teacher walks in there and they don't want to be there, or they have that attitude of my way, the highway. I know everything because I'm older than you. A lot of times that's it's off-putting because it's not always necessarily true, right? And we have to, if we want to model a learning experience, we have to be willing to learn at all times, and we have to show that to them in our interaction, right?
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
We just have Mr. Raymond has had his hand up for a while. Just wanted to.
Oh, I think that may be from the first part when he had first raised his hand.
Yeah, that was from before.
Okay.
No
Okay.
And structure as well, right? The scheduling, right? So second circuit, insect brain. This is the group function. You can study beehives or ant farms, and you can see that there's no emotion involved in the roles and the regimentation that each individual insect has. It's like when they when an ant goes out and they don't bring back their food, they kill them, right? They don't let them back in the nest. They'll kill them right there at the door, right? But what they do realize is that when they work together, their quality of life will increase exponentially, right? And humans do know this, right? Fundamentally, of course, but sometimes we get into that competition and we kind of undermine each other, right? Now, this would be the pawns, right? This is the group dynamic or the group think. The personal role is subservient to the group. Now, although this does not involve emotion at this point, or the faculty of love, etc., it's still extremely important, right? You have to be able to facilitate safety in students knowing what their role is in the classroom, right? Camaraderie is not present, right? So students are not at this point doing things because they necessarily feel good about it. So this is when our own creativity and organization skills come into play, and being able to say, let students know and build comfort in giving them the structure of what is expected of them. And this can be done by literally outlining the processes on paper or via your own personality and your mindset and your thought process, right? I never put rules up in the classroom, right? The drug that interacts with this circuit is heroin. And I think these are, a lot of these details may seem disparate perhaps, but they're very important, because when we run across these ideas in the future, it creates a much bigger picture, and then the understanding is a lot more in depth, right? This is analogous also to the sixth law in Kybalion. Every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. There's no such thing as coincidence, right? All right. Within the classroom, we want to understand our roles within the group and how we contribute to optimal functioning, right? How do we facilitate this? Well-defined roles in our group activities. And a lot of us as teachers, we know some of these things in terms of like a timer, recorder, presenter, etc. But then the rubrics, right? If students don't know what's expected of them and what they will be rewarded with, or how should I say, called upon to improve, then they're kind of in the dark. They're shooting in the dark, right? They have to know what do you want from them for them to be able to get an A, right? Or to complete the course sufficiently, right? And modeling expectations in behavior and interaction. This can be formulaic, and it might sound cold, but remember, this is the second circuit. This is about groupthink. This has nothing to do with emotion at this point, right? Your no, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, good morning, good afternoon. That is a formula, right? And it matters, right?
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Sorry, quick question from Stacy. How does heroin affect the second circuit? Heroin.
Well, chemically, I'm not a chemist, so I couldn't say how heroin actually, the chemistry of heroin with the pons itself. But I know that in terms of the group think, the group dynamic, where the personal drive, right, to do anything is totally non-existent, right? So if you've ever noticed people that are unfortunately affected by heroin, right? They'll end up a lot of times just in a state where nothing really matters, right? Besides that ability in that community and to get the next, you know what I mean? There's no personal drive to do anything at all, right? Seeing now within this group think, seeing one person win means that we all win, right? And then one example of helping to facilitate this as well as the safety is like, sometimes you'll have is to narrate the positive, right? You'll have a student that a lot of times you'll ask a question and then of a particular student, one will interrupt and say, oh, I know the answer, it's 15 x squared, right? Now, you can immediately stomp that out and say, excuse, I'm not speaking to you. What are you doing calling out a turn? It's not your turn. And you can chastise them, right? Or you can narrate the positive. I appreciate your zeal, right? We appreciate the fact that you've thought about this and you want to share with everyone. But this student here had the patience to raise their hand, and we're going to give them a chance. And you're going to help them redeem themselves by being patient yourself, right? So you don't have to shut down, right, everything just to flex your muscle, right? Like when we narrate the good thing that they have done, even when it is on the surface, seems like it's disruptive, then they don't have to feel as if they cannot be a part of that group. They begin to learn how to be a part of the group, right? So now really quickly, this was about finding purpose. And I think that the most important thing about being or really doing anything worthwhile and doing it well is having a purpose when you do it, right? So we're gonna have a few questions. We're gonna take a few minutes to do this, right? And we can do this similarly to the first one, right? We can add something in the chat, we can share out. What did you enjoy most about your childhood? What do you wish you had more of? What would you do for free every day that you enjoy? Name at least 3 things you value the most right now, right? Name at least 3 things you wish for in the future. What can you do over the next few months to make that happen? And what will your legacy be? How do you have nurtured this idea? Right? These are, hopefully this is helping us to think about that pervasive thought process that is always with us, right? So when we're in a class or any situation of interaction, we can have that as the foundation of the interaction, right? And it'll inform how we're doing that at all times. And like you can see that when you know people that have a very strong culture, right? I don't know, like my grandmother, let's say my grandmother, right? She has a very strong spiritual foundation, right? And this buoys basically I can't really think of almost any interaction that I've ever had with her that is not informed by her own knowledge of her belief system, right? And it's purpose, right? Let's see. Yeah, personal drive is opposite of groupthink, for sure. Teachers address mistakes. I'll just read a couple of these while we're jotting a couple of things down. Kathleen says, when teachers address mistakes, students see the humane level of the teacher. Respect is gained rather than lost. Many teachers believe they cannot err in the classroom and would prefer or hope the students will forget. Yes, oh my God. But why though? Like you bring your humanity to the classroom when you own that mistake, right? You don't have to put on this thing like, oh, I know the answer to every problem I put up here. I'll never write this down wrong, give you bad notes. It happens. And when they see that humanity, they understand that it's okay. It's okay to do that and then come back the next day and participate, right? Yeah, we are. I agree. Said we're so blessed to be surrounded by teachers, parents, and family. That's a fact. Now let's go back down here. Keston says, I remember my Spanish teacher. She was always excited and enthusiastic about what she was going to teach. She was a great listener and made time to hear our problems, was always willing to help when necessary. Yeah. And those are things that are not part of the curriculum, right? Because the concepts that we're discussing there, and they're really not taught in professional development. I think, especially those of us that are in education, we know this. Great point of safety in the classroom. I remember not being able to recite my birthday. Oh, wow. Wow. Stacy couldn't recite her birthday because she was so frightened because of the teacher. Wow. That's that fight or flight response, right? If you are in flight mode, there is no group dynamic, there is no intellectual dynamic, and there is no love, right? Those next three circuits are non-existent, right? They're frozen. Yeah. Vulnerability, yes, is a powerful way to connect with children as they too are being asked to be open with us. That's a fact. All right. Yeah. I'll say a couple things here, and I think it's fair. I think a couple more, 1 or 2 more minutes. What I enjoy most. If anybody's ready to share now, we can do that. All right. I can't see the whole thing. Let me check if anybody has a hand up or is a hand up on. Okay. All right. Name at least 3 things you value most right now. Name at least 3 things you wish for in the future. I think that second question for me, what do you wish you had more of during your childhood? And then not in a bad way. I thank God. I mean, I loved my childhood. I appreciated it a lot. I mean, I got a lot of love and support. I got to travel, see different places. You know, we spent summers with my grandma, and that was in itself a learning experience. But in terms of my own perspective in school, what I try to give students is what is the learning and the information that I did not get, right? And that goes right back to something, you know, and I don't know if my grandma is here, but she used to say to us all the time, to every generation, you know, it's supposed to get better. You're supposed to evolve every time, right? So the information that I was not necessarily given, I feel like it's my job to share that as much as possible, right? Because the learning curve is so much more steep, right? When you're not prepared, right? And what will your legacy be? Anybody have anything to share for this? How do you nurture this idea? These 3 things. Childhood. Oh, wow. Okay. Let me see. Awesome. Playing after school. Kathleen says, playing after school, wish I had more socially structured activities, help children to learn, family, friends, and harmony, health and financial freedom, do whatever to maintain good health. And all of these ideals do help inform our interaction and how we facilitate in the classroom, right? Most enjoyable thing about my childhood, Heather says, were two different cultures and perspectives. Yeah, that's a fact, right? With this, I was able to travel and see various perspectives on how to handle the same issues. Yeah, and it forces your mind or compels your mind to expand, right? I wish I had more understanding during childhood. It took me years to understand that different perspectives and methods still were representations of love. Yeah, regardless of how flawed they may have been at times, love came in the form of criticism, judgment that I was unable to digest as a child. I wish I had more understanding that the adults could only give me what they had. Oh man, damn, that's beautiful. And doesn't that type of sentiment help inform the way you interact with your own children or the students that you have, Heather? Yes, right? Wow. And you would write, draw, sing, and what do you do? What do you teach?
Art.
Thank you. Okay. All right, let me see. All right, let's go to the next slide. All right. We kind of discussed this. Having a well-defined purpose gives us the underlying unseen mental platform that informs all of our actions, right? And we're going to post this as well in case anybody would like to go back and check it out here. All right, third circuit, cerebellum, intellect, bird brain, right? It's just called the bird brain. Cerebellum in Latin means the little brain, right? Bird brain, little brain in Latin, to reason and understand objectively. This is intellect. A plus B equals C, right? If it can't be read or researched, it doesn't exist. Now, that is not a definitive statement. That can be a, that can be a negative sort of quality in terms of how we deal with information, because some things are intuitive. And if we had the time, we would go into fifth circuit where you have one, first, second, third, and fourth, the safety, reptilian, the groupthink, the intellect, and love. When those are activated, the intuition now takes place, and that is activated as well, right? So research is not always the answer, but it is a foundation of getting to those levels, right? Motor control, attention, etc. Cocaine and sugar interact with this part of the brain, right? And you get people a lot of times notoriously on cocaine, they ego trip, right? They think they can do anything, right? Because anything makes sense because nothing is taboo, right? Let's see. All right, and how this manifests in the classroom, we do not give answers, right? I really don't like it when I see teachers giving answers. That's my personal thing, right? We facilitate and lead by asking questions. You do not give answers. You do not give answers. You don't give out answers. You just don't give out answers. What are you doing? Why? You're not going to teach anyone, right, to learn or to figure out the thing for themselves if they don't at least participate in the experience of the learning, right? So this is where content knowledge comes into play too, because you have to know your subject matter inside out so that you can ask the right questions, right, to bring them to that point. And I'm not saying, now don't get me wrong, if they do homework and then you say, oh no, that was 5. That's not my point. When we're doing a lesson though, right, when we're trying to help the student figure something out, we ask questions, right? We ask questions, right? You want to go past that pace of guide wherever possible, right? Unfortunately, in schools, they have people locked into pacing guides a lot, teaching to tests, right? Unfortunately, teaching to a test is not really, a lot of times it's antithetical to actually passing the test for a lot of people. If you teach students how to problem solve, then they could go into the test comfortably and figure it out for themselves, right? Do not dumb down material or assume a student's inability to perform. That is, first of all, that is insulting, right? It's insulting. And a lot of times, and I've seen this many, many times, You go into a teacher's classroom and it's just dittos all day. And they're not challenging anyone. The work is not really even challenging. Now, if you give them some primary source of material with the worksheet to go with it, something that they have to break down and digest for themselves, that's something else, right? But just busy work is an insult, right? We don't do busy work, right? And this does not build on, this is not challenging the intellect. So the students don't feel like they're part of a group because they're not accomplishing anything. And the safety aspect is that, does it really matter? Because why do they want to participate in that and or risk themselves in that type of situation? And then it's not loving because you're not compelling them to grow, right? You have to assume that success is inevitable, right? The fourth circuit, occipital lobe, is emotion. It's knowingness and balance. And this is analogous to the fourth law in the Kybalion, polarity, right? This is where we get now into emotion, right? This processes vision, shapes, color, movement, the ability to know and feel kinesthetically, right? This is empathy, right? We know when something is good, like look at Texas right now, right? I remember last night I was listening to people describe that situation there, and they have these so-called warming centers. I don't even really want to get into too much detail because of what some people are being compelled to do just to go into a warming center. But that is something that you don't have to be there to actually feel and empathize what the people are going through, right? This is the fourth circuit, right? And this is where love is manifested, right? And this is emotion, right? Electricity in motion. And that emotive energy that translates into all those interactions, all those simple interactions you have with a student from moment to moment, even eye contact. Everything is important. And that's one of the reasons why purpose is extremely important, because that's going to inform everything in that classroom. And it is difficult, but that's why we have to develop that purpose. Why are we in there in the first place, right? They'll give people a teaching certificate just because they passed the test, and they'll say, okay, you go in here, go to this PD. We don't care if you like children or not. That doesn't matter. You have your paperwork. Let's go, right? But why are you in there though? Like, what is the reason? And if you don't know what it is, you need to leave, right? Because they're probably not going to tell you that, and the students are going to know as well, right? And if you're not true to yourself, these first four circles are going to be irrelevant, right? This is not going to matter for you, and you're not going to have a functional classroom, right? Knowledge is a chemical reality. I'm not preaching to the people here. I think we know what's going on, right? Knowledge is a chemical reality, meaning in terms of like the neurotransmitters, right? We have a thought, it's distilled down in the brain, neurotransmitters, hormones go through the body, and we can feel it, right? Pop culture, the students are listening to debased music, right? How can we counteract that? We give them good music, good vibration, right? Good vibration. Then that'll go, if we went past the fourth circuit into 5, 6, and 7, 2 vibration, then we would have time to actually see how important that is. And they use vibration in science every single day to affect reality, right? And marijuana in this case is the substance that most famously affects the occipital lobe. But the dangerous thing, like we said before about that, is that 90% of the stuff that people have out here today is laced, and it's manipulated to have extremely high THC levels and very low cannabinoid levels. The CBD oil, which counteracts the effects of the THC on the brain to keep it healthy, they dwindle that down and they shoot up the THC. So it's pretty dangerous, right? Depending on where you're going. It's what it is. Everything is dual, has poles, has a pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, et cetera, et cetera. All right. How do we manifest this in the class? We celebrate and discipline regardless of reputation, right? One of the worst things you can do is when a student comes into the classroom, you know how people go in the teacher's room and everybody's gossiping about students or this or that. Oh, can't stand so-and-so. He always been there. And the mother and the daddy, mother. No. Because what happens a lot of times, that student will come into the classroom and a teacher that is not there for the right reasons is going to take that reputation and interact with them based on what another person has said, as opposed to building the foundation from the first to the second to the third to that fourth circuit. If you do that, you can take the students that other people complain about. They will love you, and they will learn, right? Equality and fairness are not necessarily the same, right? Equality, and everyone does not have to get the same exact thing or same exact treatment. We have to meet each individual person where they are. That is love, right? Move on from disputes quickly. I think this is one of the most important things, particularly in a school or just in general, right? When you have an argument, yeah, because I have to do this in my own life, in general with people, right? Even outside, if I'm in a drive-thru, right? When you have an interaction with someone, particularly a young person, 5 minutes later, short-term memory, it's over. I don't even remember any of that. I don't remember what happened. I know what happened, but you're a new person right now, and we're starting from scratch. And they appreciate that so much, because that they don't generally get that. And a lot of times the students that are behaving in that way, it's because they're not getting that type of reinforcement, where they are being, where it's being cultivated for them, that they know it's okay for them to make a mistake, right? They get that chastisement automatically, right? Defend all students regardless of reputation or personal sentiments within the classroom and in the presence of others. And even the ones that are not being defended or whatever, they're watching you as well. And they know where you are when they see how you defend another student, whether people think they deserve it or not, right? And we mentioned this as well: immediately admit to and own mistakes, communicate, and draw upon personal experiences where appropriate. All right, and I just wanted to leave off a little bit with this quote. There's a couple questions after this. I know we're about 5 minutes right here over. So this is from a study, right? 2003 research study at University of Michigan reveals that positive effects of generosity include improving one's mental and physical health and promoting longevity. In another study, it traced 2,700 people over 10 years, found that men that did regular volunteer work had death rates 2.5 times lower than the men who did not. Generosity reduces stress, supports one's immune system, and enhances one's sense of purpose, right? Now, philosophically, we know these things, but it's always great to have that third circuit, that intellectual component, to reinforce that, so we can be in symbiosis, right? In avoidance of depression, a direct benefit we gain from giving is that generosity inherently shifts our focus off of ourselves. I know that I've been through times in my life where I was upset, but I know that when I went into school and I had a reason to be there and I had that purpose, that was on the back burner. That was not really an issue for me, right? All right. So now we can do this, I guess, we'll leave this off for people that want to maybe continue some of this later on their own. All right. You can share different aspects of these 4 following qualities that can enhance someone else's life, right? Safety. Do you know someone that's anxious about anything, right? Teamwork, who could use extra help? Intellectual stimulation, what idea interests you that needs to be shared, whether you think it will be well received or not, right? Love and generosity, celebration and forgiveness, offer a shoulder, right? This can be done regularly, weekly, obviously, right? But when we do that, it becomes a part of us, right? And we bring it into our occupation or whatever we're doing. And that will lead to that 5th circuit, that intuition, right? And yes, and there we have it, right? We're gonna close off here, right? Thank you for everyone for being here. We appreciate you attending. We hope that it was worthwhile. We're gonna share links to this, and everybody have a great weekend, I guess.
Yes, just want to say thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, you can unmute and share. Let's give Mr. Lloyd a round of applause. Thank you so much. Any questions? So Ms. Ragan says, awesome.
Thank you, Mr.
Awesome. Oh, hi, Joseph. Nice to see you. Hi, Dad. Hi, Mom. Nice to see you. Auntie Janice, Grandma.
Hi. Sean, I am very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, Mrs. Ragan has her hand up.
I just want to say this is awesome. I do work in the school. I'm the parent liaison, so I'm not in the classroom. But the things that you were saying, it made me think about some of our classrooms. It made me think about how I handle things at home with my own sons. But also, if this can be presented to more parents, and I'll speak with Mrs. Robinson or Lloyd offline about how we can possibly have you come and present this to our parents so they can, so they can see how they can facilitate this at home, and or even have these questions with their child's teachers, right? So you go in the classroom, do you see these things going happening? Or because I'm in a high school where the parents can have these family members can have these conversations with their students to see, are any of these things happening in the classroom? And if it's not happening, then how can we as parents facilitate it? How can we make that happen? So earlier when you talked about like our purpose, I thank God that I'm in a position where I am working in my purpose, and it's having freedom in education. Everything does not have to be cookie cutter, where families have the confidence in speaking up and saying, hey, I want to see some things different, or hey, I love what I see going on and I want to replicate that and I want to spread it. So and everything you said, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just glad that I'm here today, and it's something that I definitely want to see spread to families, because unfortunately, if we don't push it, it's only going to it's going to happen. It'll happen, right? Because you're doing the work. But if it's teacher led versus family led, teachers are in the middle. They may want to do everything that you wrote, everything, they may believe it, but if their administrators aren't with it, if the structure doesn't support it, then they're banging their head against the wall. But now if you have the teachers and families on the same page saying this is what we want to see, it will happen faster.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Much. No, thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate your zeal, as we we might say in the class, right? We appreciate your contribution. And
thank you so much.
Yeah. So everybody have a good weekend, I guess. Thanks to everybody for being here, and we'll see you.
And your participation. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
Most welcome. Bye.
Bye.